Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. Throughout my life, I've made numerous errors. I've fallen and risen, been hurt and then healed. In my 19 years, I've seen a lot and believe I've learned a lot. My life has changed dramatically as a result of my experiences, and I'm now a better person as a result of everything I've learned and overcome. One Sunday morning, I had a near-death experience. I had just awoken and was excited for the day ahead. I felt good, and I'd hoped that my life would turn out well. I was overjoyed, and my ex-partner had finally realized how much she had hurt me and that she was willing to change. I recall going to the kitchen to eat something before returning to my room. I received a text message. I proceeded to read the message. In a nutshell, my cousin was asking if I was aware that my ex was dating someone I mistook for a friend. I had no idea what to say at first. I knew I had to find out if this was true, so I devised a plan to do so. I remember being in a panic and feeling all of my anger and anxiety surge. Then I realized what it was. I'd contact her best friend and ask her. I'll get my response. I made the decision to call her. She confirmed it was true after she said I knew too much. I asked her how long they'd been dating, and she said 2 weeks. Upon hearing those words, I immediately felt disoriented and began to panic. My entire emotional spectrum began to surge, and I began to cry. I sobbed because she'd once again made me look like a fool. I cried because I knew I was unhappy and miserable in so many ways, but mostly because I was ashamed that I'd fallen for the same trick again. I wanted to stop hurting, and I knew the humiliation wouldn't go away quickly. As I sat in the dark crying, I kept repeating one thing to myself. I don't want to do it any longer. I'd always assumed that I wouldn't live long and that my death fantasies would soon come true. I was sick of the depression, and I was especially sick of the pain. It had been going on for far too long. I despised my life and couldn't get away from it. I quickly realized what I needed to do. I knew I had to get rid of the discomfort. I knew I had to stop suffering, so I went into a panic with those thoughts in mind. I paced back and forth, crying uncontrollably. I knew this was a bad idea, and I cried even harder, but I just wanted to stop hurting. I recall seeing all of my painful memories running through my mind, ripping at my already bleeding heart. All of the pain felt impossible to bear, and I simply gave up. I knew I had to put an end to the agony and humiliation. I was tired of being hurt and suffering over and over. I pictured my late grandmother and family before turning to face my best friend Eddie, my dog. I recall feeling the tears flow faster. I was crying more and more. I placed Eddie in his crate and began collecting as many pill bottles as I could find. I piled them all on my bed and realized I needed more. I needed to get rid of the discomfort. I wanted to end this life that I despised. I simply didn't want to do it any longer. I was tired of being in pain and never feeling like I was good enough for anyone. I just wanted it to stop. As a result, I went into the living room in search of any pill bottle I could find. I entered my parents' bathroom and went through their medicine cabinet. I remember feeling panicked and knowing I had to hurry. I stuffed the pill bottles I'd found into my pockets. I knew what I needed to do, so I went to my room. I placed all of the pills I'd discovered on my bed before getting up and closing my bedroom door. I wanted it all to stop. I wished to alleviate the pain. I despised my life and everything about myself. I recalled thinking about my comfort zone and wanting to go sit in it. This small space between my bed and dresser was my haven. I could fit in because it was small enough. I recall removing my blanket from my bed and covering myself with it. I just sat there and started swallowing pills as fast as I could. I cried harder than I'd ever cried before, and I just hoped it would all go away. I took more pills and remember gradually feeling the pain subside. I remember looking over at Eddie and smiling. I remembered my sister and apologized. I was falling asleep slowly. I recall seeing darkness all around me. Nothing but two people sitting in the middle of the room talking to each other could be seen. I recall seeing them from afar. I couldn't see the people's faces and was curious about who they were. I didn't feel anything. I felt peaceful and at ease. I made every effort to see the people. I noticed a man sitting with the woman who appeared to be familiar. His clothes were simple. He was barefoot and he exuded a glow. I recognized him as I looked closer into his face. I knew it had to be me. Everything about me was flawless. I had a radiant smile on my face. My skin glowed and I looked better than I had in years. Then I remembered having a different point of view. I was sitting directly in front of a woman, staring into her eyes for a long time, but I couldn't see anything. She was dressed in dark, aged clothing. She wore a black veil over her face, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't see anything. I was so calm, and I remember feeling so much better. I knew we were talking because my lips were moving. I had no idea what we were talking about, but I kept drifting between the two opposing points of view. I could see from above and then return to my body, feeling myself talk and looking at the women. This went on for a while until I noticed a door in the distance open. When the door opened, it flooded the dark room with blinding white light, making it difficult to see. It irritated my eyes. I recalled the woman rising from her seat and walking toward the light. I sat there and then jumped up to follow her. I was unable to move. I recalled reaching out and yelling at her to hold on and take me with her. I reached out more and more, but I was firmly grounded. My feet wouldn't move, and I begged her to return. Then she turned around and stared at me. "It's not your time yet," she said, in what appeared to be English. Then she vanished. I remember opening my eyes barely to see people looking down at me. I had no idea who they were or where I was. My head hurt, and I was confused. I was completely disoriented and unable to feel anything. I remembered what I'd just gone through and became increasingly disoriented. I fell back asleep. Then I remember waking up and looking at my mother. She sat there, sadly looking at me. I remember hot tears streaming down my cheeks and feeling her hand on my shoulder. She sobbed as she looked down at me. I tried to apologize to her, but I couldn't. I just cried some more. I'd been sleeping in a 3-day coma the entire time I was having my experience. Doctors agreed and told my family that if I didn't wake up soon, they would have to turn off my life support. They told my parents that I would never fully recover, that my organs were failing, and that I would die without life support. I didn't realize it at the time, but I'd been declared dead several times. They resurrected me each time. My parents were told that if I survived, I would have brain and organ failure and would never be the same. They said I wouldn't be able to walk again and that my psychological state would never be the same. They all agreed I was going to die and had a slim chance of surviving. To inflate my lungs, the doctors had to make a small cut in my neck, and they did everything they could to save me. To everyone's surprise, I awoke on the day I was supposed to be taken off life support. My life changed on that day. It took me a long time to realize what I'd witnessed was incredible. My mother heard my story. She thinks the woman I saw was my grandmother who died in 2005. She had adored and cared for me until the day she died. Everyone who knew her thought I was her favorite grandson and source of joy. She had adored me, and I had adored her in return. I believe it was also my grandmother. That's why I felt so at ease. I believe she finally had the opportunity to see me and that the woman I saw in my dream was her. My grandmother was always a caring person. She cared deeply about her family, God, and her first grandchild, me. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. I hope that, no matter what your situation is, you seek help if you believe your only option is death. Remember that everyone on this planet is loved, and that life is too precious to waste. Think positively, and remember that life is too short to worry about trivial matters. Life is a gift from God, and it is our responsibility to enjoy it to the fullest. We all matter, and we all matter a lot to someone. Enjoy your life.